Hello and welcome. You're watching Today in Parliament with me, Aishwarya, and these are the Parliament headlines. Debate on motion of thanks to President's address to continue in both houses. Prime Minister Narendra Modi to reply to debate on the motion in Parliament today. Discussion on Union Budget 2020-21 slated to begin in both houses today. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the budget on 1st of February. And ministers to lay papers pertaining to their ministries in both houses. In Lok Sabha, members Ravneet Singh and Kauli Ghosh to lay minutes of the first sitting of the committee on absence of members. Further discussion on motion of thanks on the President's address will continue in Rajya Sabha today for the third day. The general discussion on Union Budget 2020-21 is also listed in today's business. And the lower house too is slated to hold further discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address. The House will also begin general discussion on the Union Budget for 2020-21. Let's go across to Kriti Mishra for more updates. Kriti, President Ramnath Kovind had addressed the joint sitting of both the Houses of Parliament on 31st of last month, and both Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha are holding discussion on the motion of thanks to the President's address for the last 2 days. And today, Prime Minister Modi is expected to reply on the motion of thanks to the President's address. What more can you tell us about the Prime Minister's reply? All right, we'll try to connect back to Kriti, but it is going to be a very significant day in both houses of Parliament because Prime Minister Modi is expected to reply on the motion of thanks to the President's address. It is expected that he will reply in the Lok Sabha at around 12 noon and in Rajya Sabha at around 5 p.m. Remember, President Ramnath Kovind had addressed the joint sitting of both houses of Parliament on 31st of last month. And both the houses are holding discussion since the last 2 days. Let's go across to Kriti. Now, Kriti, PM Modi is expected to reply on the motion of thanks to the President's address in both houses today. Tell us more about the Prime Minister's reply.
Well, Aishwarya, this has been the convention that Prime Minister replies to the motion of thanks on President's address in both houses of Parliament. So today we are hearing that in the Lok Sabha, Prime Minister may reply around noon, and in the Rajya Sabha, Prime Minister may reply around 5 p.m. Now, the convention that is adopted that after Prime Minister's reply, the amendments are put to vote. And right now, we've only known 3 instances when amendments were actually adopted in motion of thanks. Once it was in 1980, 1989, and the last that we remember was in 2001. So today what we're hearing is that the opposition parties have moved around 400 amendments that would be put to vote, and thereafter, there would be voting on motion of thanks, and then, of course, this motion would be adopted. So a very important day in Parliament because Prime Minister would reply in both houses today. Aishwarya?
And absolutely, Kriti, we've been witnessing a very fruitful discussion in both houses as far as, the motion of thanks on President's address is concerned. And, today also that, of course, debate is going to continue. If you can wrap up for us, how the discussion has been for the last 2 days.
Well, Aishwarya, Article 87 of Constitution provides for President's address, and talking about the Rajya Sabha rules 14 to 21 of Rules of Procedure and Conduct of Rajya Sabha provide for discussion on motion of thanks on President's address. Now, in the Rajya Sabha, this discussion was initiated by member Bhupendra Yadav, that was seconded by Sudhanshu Trivedi. The BJP and the NDA allies talked on host of government's achievements and also mentioned specifically about abrogation of Article 370 CAA and also the economic reforms that the government has undertaken. We also remember how Bhupendra Yadav said that it is under the current dispensation that the national security has been enhanced. He also lauded the appointment of CDS. And as far as the opposition parties are concerned, the opposition parties upped the ante against the government on a host of issues, including the CAA, and also demanded that the government should actually take back this amendment, and also said that the government must try to establish communication channels with the protesters at the Shaheen Bagh. There were several issues related to farmers. So very important and an erudite discussion we witnessed in both houses of Parliament on motion of thanks on President's address. Aishwarya?
And right, Kriti, also it is the budget session. So, of course, the union budget, is at the center of this entire budget session. And a general discussion on the union budget for 2020-21 is also going to start in both houses of Parliament today. Tell us more.
Well, Aishwarya, Union Budget 2020 and also the economic survey talked about wealth creation in the country, and the Budget 2020 focused mainly on three pillars, including making India, aspirational India, the hopes of India and new India, and also the economic reforms and giving back to the society. There were several measures that were announced in the budget, and of course talking about the farming community, mega 16-point action plan was unveiled by the finance minister. She talked about novel avenues like Krishi Udan, Krishi Rail, and also talking specifically about the industry. There were several reforms for the industry that were unveiled in the budget 2020, and the individuals and the middle class, we saw the changes in the tax rules in order to put more disposable income in the hands of the individuals to foster savings, consumption and investment in the economy. So certainly a very important discussion we'll witness in both houses of parliament when the houses take up discussion on Union Budget 2020. Aishwarya?
All right, Kriti, thank you so much for all those updates there. And now let's take a look at the other legislative business in both houses. Talking first of Rajya Sabha, the members will lay papers pertaining to their ministries on the table today. Jitendra Singh for the Ministry of Personal, Public Grievances and Pensions and the Department of Atomic Energy. Dhodre Sanjay Shamrao for the Ministry of Communications and Ministry of Human Resource Development. And a look now at the legislative business in the Lok Sabha. Following ministers will lay papers pertaining to their ministries on the table. Kiran Rijiju for the Ministry of Youth Affairs and Sports. R.K. Singh for the Ministry of Power and the Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Mansukh Mandavia for the Ministry of Shipping. Dhodre Sanjay Shamrao for the Ministry of Communications. Ratanlal Kataria for the Ministry of Jal Shakti. Pratap Chandra Sarangi for the Ministry of Micro, Small and Medium Enterprises. Hardeep Singh Puri for the Ministry of Housing and Urban Affairs and the Ministry of Civil Aviation. Hardeep Singh Puri will also make a statement regarding the status of implementation of recommendations contained in the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Urban Development on Solid Waste Management, including hazardous waste, medical waste and e-waste pertaining to his ministry. And also, Ravneet Singh and Kakoli Ghosh Dastidar will lay on the table the minutes of the first sitting of the committee on the absence of members from the sittings of the House held in November 2019. And with that, we wrap up this edition of Today in Parliament. Do stay tuned. The proceedings of the Upper House are going to commence in a short while at 11 a.m. Thanks so much for watching.